Hello everyone, my name is Dizzy Kabitty, and today we are going to be talking about Fallen Eventide, which is my downfall setup using Golden Rule primarily for action skill cooldown rate, to do downfalls as much as possible and use the radius and damage to our advantage. If you have utilized Supernatural Amara by Stone Spawn, this is very similar, just with a little more variety and options for you to use. As does Downfall, of course, the action skill we are going to be using is Downfall, and Fracture if you wish. You can also utilize Fracture, Tandava, because we go down blue. But it's primarily Downfall, and if you want to utilize other action skills, I would recommend using another build. So let's get into the skill tree. So, with the skill tree, of course, it's going to be Downfall, any action skill you want, as I just explained, and Expedite for the cooldown. But let's start with Green Tree, because this is the one that you need to get Downfall. And we have 5 Clarity and 3 Samsara. This is your biggest bit of healing. It's massive, it's 35%, which, the more you use your action skill, the more stacks of Clarity that you're going to actually get. Which is just really good and keeps you alive, especially in dense mobbing situations where you think, oh, I'm going to die. Samsara and Clarity just keep you alive. They're just really stupidly strong. And then we have Helping Hands, which is damage resistance. It's not that good, but any little bit of survivability helps, especially on a build like this. Especially depending on the shield you want to utilize. It's just survivability. That's what those 3 do. Then Arm Seal is a little bit of splash damage, a little bit of splash damage resistance, but mainly the splash damage, we just need to move down the tree, so we just take it. And the Mindfulness is movement speed, which I will say time and time and time again. Mindfulness, Vigor, and Speed Demon. Your movement speed skills, the big ones at least, because Go with the Flow's there and it's not really that good, but your movement speed skills are the biggest thing that you can use for your survivability. Not getting hit and being able to move and get in or out of an enemy's aggression range is probably the most important thing survivability. It's not just being able to face tank, it's just not being in a part of the map you don't want to be. Especially on like Bridge. Then you have Guardian Angel, which I'll talk about this more a bit later, but it's just there for the survivability. If you mess up and you go down, it'll be right there. And then Jab Cross is just filler. It's burner points, and you don't really need to do anything with it. But you can move these to wherever you want, honestly. But Blue Tree is just going to be your standard Blue Tree spec. It's going to be Do Harm maxed, Fast Hands for swap speed, reload speed, which is actually really nice, and 1 Tapestry just to build up your rush stacks. Now, the thing that is a little bit different here is Alacrity. We have 5 out of 5. Now, normally, I would just throw points in Restless or Transcend. However, the reason I have Alacrity here is just for the reload speed. It makes it a little more fluid, which I believe I will explain later a bit more in depth, but the TLDR is Alacrity makes gameplay more fluid because you spend less time reloading. And Ascendant makes your Glamour last longer, it makes your Revelation stronger, it makes Expedite even better. One notable thing, you cannot run Allure. Allure just does not work with all the Green Tree action skills. I don't know why, it just doesn't, unfortunately. Otherwise, you could use Allure and it'd be very nice to increase the radius of Allure, but no. Then Laid Bare is just a massive damage multiplier. From Rest is purely there for the charge speed. Otherwise, it's whatever, and the charge speed doesn't matter too much unless you want to use something like I just did an off-meta self-knot weapon. Remnant, I don't need to explain it. You kill an enemy with the action skill, Remnant spawns, hits another enemy, they obliterate, and that's what Remnant does. Awakening is there to buff Do Harm and Alacrity. Both of them actually are noticeably buffed by this. And Avatar is there for the rush stack count and just getting action skill back. You really don't need Avatar for the extra action skill usage, shockingly, on this build. But the max rush stacks is such a big bonus that is still worth getting and investing the points into, especially since the other options to get down here, other than from Rest, are quite strong. So we're only using 3 points to get 10 more rush stacks, which helps us ramp up our damage faster, which I believe is worth it. Then we have Anima, which is just status duration is what we use it for. It's status damage too, but status duration is the big one, which just keeps us self-dead for longer, letting us play slower if we wish without punishing us. Tempest is Tempest, it's just element damage. You can do a little alt spec I have, and I'll talk about later, where you can go into Burnable Ends. But generally, Tempest is going to be your better pick, especially if you want Guardian Angel. Then we get into Infusion, which Infusion is just going to help yourself dot better. And finally, we have Trust in Yourself. So, Trust in Yourself is just going to be reload speed, charge speed, which isn't that noticeable, same reason we have From Rest, but it's not that good, and swap speed. Swap speed, 160% is such a large bonus that it's the make or break for builds like this. And in this situation, it is absolutely make. You need as many points as you could put in there as possible, and when I was making this build, it was a non-negotiable, I need Trust in Yourself. It was almost unplayable even at 3 out of 5, so please stick to 5 out of 5. And then Heavy Rain is 35% splash damage. It also is projectile speed, which is good for the Guardian Angel if you want to use it. I wouldn't recommend it though, but it is an option. Because we are using Golden Rule, we're also going to be using Expedite because our cooldown is extremely long and we want to get our downfalls back as fast as possible, which is really difficult to do without Expedite, even though it is quite doable. You're going to be looking at about 4 seconds instead of 2.5 to 3, which does add up over time. If you're bossing, you can always utilize Revelation, and Glamour is an option for True Guardian takedown crystals, and other things where you want aggro draw, maybe such as Bridge if you're just working on the build, you don't have everything set up. But you shouldn't really need to worry about all that too much, because you just have the damage. But Glamour is there if you need it, especially if you don't element match, which is very important, as it'll be the difference between one-shotting and two-shotting your enemies. Which is quite notable. Because, of course, that's double the time you're going to be spending doing damage, so match your element. If you can't match your element, such as going against some of the Guardians, because they have large Corrosive and Shock Bar, just go Corrosive. Honestly, it's a little bit better, in my experience, and it's just simpler, especially since you get the longer dot time, which is more what I'm rating for Downfall. Sorry about the rambling. On our primary spec, we have 2 points in Jab Cross. These are random, you don't need to do anything with them. You can take your extra points in Jab Cross Guardian Angel, and I believe it is Tempest, and you can slap those into Purple Tree, and get all the way down to 3 points in Purple Ends, which is technically more damage. But it's not as secure of a playstyle, and you can't die if you don't utilize Stopgap or Frozen Heart. So I do recommend using the Guardian Angel and just getting the Jab Cross, but it is always an option to just not go for that and go slightly more damage. You can also utilize... let's go. You can also utilize, like, Combo Breaker, Illuminated Fist, and Find Your Center if you want to use Stinger a little more, and go like a melee hybrid, but it's not my style, especially since Stinger will do a lot more, especially if you slap Silent Charge, than your Downfall ever could, and you'd be just looking at a worse version of just a Golden Rule Tadava setup. For our guns, we have a Guardian Angel. Now you have 2 options here. You have Slam Damage, which is going to be your preferred say Face Slams increase your damage by 300%. However, very technically, at max Guardian, not at max, but almost at max range on your Guardian Angel, Terra Cryo can output more damage, which makes it significantly harder to use, but technically more. It's not worth it overall, though. But it is an option. I just wanted to put it out there. And then, secondary gun, we generally have like 3 swaps, but you can do 4, you could absolutely fit 4. And you can just use 0, you don't have to, but simpler. So Guardian Angel, then you have your Face Puncher. This is going to apply your Groundbreaker to kill ranged targets, say, like targets at range of flying targets. This is really good for Sarahs and for Jetpack Troopers on Guardian Takedown and Malwan Takedown, respectively, because you don't have to get near them because they do a lot of damage. For this, you don't need a 9, but you prefer to have 7 projectiles, not 14, because just mag size, and you want kill stack, because if any enemies die to a dot, to your Groundbreaker, to a Rat Explosion, or anything in that's going to increase your reload time, which is just a little nice bonus. It just helps you reload your Face Puncher faster, and your self-dot gun, and your just that all. And Guardian Angel, if you ever go down, it's really good for that. Except it doesn't work when you go down, but it is just good for Guardian Angel. which is your main fight for your life weapon if you don't have Groundbreaker. Alternatively, you can run melee generate terror, because that's how you get your terror for Terror Cryo. So it's really simple. Also, technically you can get true, say, terror damage fire rate, but AAC Rad's just, in my experience, even on a cryo setup a little better, so I would recommend that. Now, self-dot guns. There's a few of them. Roizen's Thorns, there is the Sellout, a few other guns I forgot, but the Insider is going to be your #1 pick, because Insider hits you more often than any other self-dot gun in the game. It has a higher hit per second, or whatever you want to call it. So it lets you get your golden roll. It's also effectively guaranteed in every situation to self-dot you, because of how many projectiles it has. So you're going to be using Insider or self-dot gun of choice, and that's going to be giving you faster action skill cooldown rates, so you get your slams out even faster. More slams, more damage, faster clear speeds, better survivability, because your survivability is tied to how much damage you do. Not because you're running sustainment, but because of just how all of this goes around. If you don't get hit, you don't die, and then you can also utilize Frozen Heart and some more things to get healing through those sources. Though I do find a large portion of our healing comes from Samsara and Clarity, because that is up to 35% HP per second. It's massive, and it's really strong, especially if you can just play passive for a few seconds, especially on your cooldown. Now, fourth gun, I don't use this, you won't see this anywhere in the video, but you can utilize is Zytev's Eruption with any element, honestly. Say any annoying kill stack, I think is best here. But if you have downtime in your action skill cycles, if you find you have a lot of downtime, you could use the Zytev's Eruption to get a little bit of debuffs, though I do find this did get me down somewhat, and it also just didn't really feel noticeable because of how it works in mobbing. Decent for bossing, but just not that worth it in my opinion. It is really good for Anathema the Invincible, because Anathema, you have the long cooldowns between the Novas, and so actually you can utilize it there. And then grenades, it's really simple. Any grenade, if not Fish Slap, it's not going to make a difference, not a single bit. Technically, Transfusion, you can be utilized, but I wouldn't really use it. I would just stick to Fish Slap or Hex. Hex is really pretty. And then shields. This is the part where you get to pick. And this is one of the things that I don't like about Supernatural Amara. And that's, you have shield choices. You have a lot of shield choices. Supernatural Amara says that if you want to utilize Downfall, you must utilize Stopgap. It says it's required. You can find that on the site. I don't like that, because it's not. And when I first came up with this build on my own, didn't even know that build was a thing on the site. I didn't even use it. I was using Revolter and the Frozen Heart. But the Stopgap is really good for certain situations where you cannot get close to the enemy, such as Wotan when they split. You can't get close to him. You could just Stopgap, get your invincibility and slam there. But anything honestly works. I really like the Singularity Shields, the Black Hole, and the Void Rift. I really like the Frozen Heart and the Snowshoe, because those provide like enemy stall, enemy delay, and also gives you quite a bit of damage. Stinger is really good, and then Stopgap obviously is there for certain situations. You can also use Stopgap always. It's not going to be better for damage, but it works. Your technical best for damage is, of course, always going to be Revolter, though I do think a Stinger with a melee alt spec is going to be slightly better for clear speeds due to static charge. But Revolter, Nova Burner, you have Singularity, which is Black Hole and Void Rift, you have Frozen Heart, Snowshoe, Recharger Burner, Recharger. You can use a Madcap, it doesn't really matter what you use. The shield is very nice, you can use it for utility, but it's not going to fill your build. None of them are required, is the big thing. There is not a required shield, not a required grenade, not a required gun even. You don't have to utilize Guardian Angel like Face Puncher. You can just play how you want. That's the joy of this game, isn't it? It's the variety and the freedom. But, back on track, we can now get to our artifacts and our class mods. Artifacts. Victory Rush is going to be your main pick generally, but you can also use a static charge if you want to use Stinger or more Face Puncher Focus. And obviously, because we are using self-dotting, we're going to be using Elemental Projector. But you also can use Atom Bomb, because we have ASE Rad. Atom Bomb is there. It's just not going to be better than Elemental Projector, because Elemental Projector is going to buff every single element that you can apply, because you're self-dotting yourself with every single element that you can apply to enemies. Atom Bomb only buffs Radiation Explosions, which do not scale that nicely. They scale, and they're going to be very strong. Notice, they don't scale as nicely as I would wish. And obviously, the passive is just going to be your element damage, your AoE, your splash damage, your cooldown rate, your melee damage, and that's just a bit about it. It's going to be the same thing no matter what. Just on almost every build that uses action skills, that's what you're going to use. Class mods. Golden Rule, as I stated at the beginning. Golden Rule is cooldown. As the biggest downside to Phase Slam, especially Downfall, is cooldown rate. Because you have a long time before you can activate your action skill, you have a long time before it comes back. You have the long animation, especially with Downfall, so you do less damage per second. You want to utilize cooldown rate as much as possible. And if you utilize Golden Rule, even over Phase Zerker and other comms that can get, maybe such as Restless or Dragon, Golden Rule lets you get your Face Slams to also hit with Laid Bare. So you hit once, they get the damage, and they get Laid Bare bonus. You can hit again in that time and get even more Laid Bare. Really strong. I'm unsure if Laid Bare procs on the first one, but worst case scenario, all your damage, especially from your shield, is going to get Laid Bare on the slam, rather than just maybe just the slam, or maybe not at all. And of course, on Golden Rule, you want as many Laid Bare as possible. Mindfulness is the next best, but Laid Bare is damage, flat out. And the passives are cooldown rate, splash damage, radius, and whatever else you want. And I did talk about it already, but for gameplay, we have self-dotting, then we have Guardian Angel, and you face slam once or twice, however you feel, and Face Puncher is your groundbreaker. It's so incredibly strong, and I highly recommend it. You can swap to your Zytevs after you Face Puncher, or you don't even want to use Face Puncher, you can just swap to Zytevs, and get your so you get your debuffs out, a little more damage, but not worth it, as I mentioned. It's a very fluid gameplay, in my experience. It's shockingly tanky due to Samsara, and it keeps you above health gate a lot of the time. If you mess up, there's always Guardian Angel in the spec that I'm providing you, though feel free to experiment, change it up how you want. This is just what I found to be best on my setup. It's a ramp-up damage style, so if you've ever played like Pyromancer from Outriders, it's not going to be very strong in the first instance. It's going to take about 10 seconds to actually get going, and once you do, it's just gonna keep going and piling more faster, and it's gonna just be stronger and stronger. The one thing I did find is that Alacrity was shockingly good. I didn't think on this build that Alacrity would ever be unnoticed, but when playing it, I found that one of the main things that I was messing up was my reloads were just too slow to maintain the loops as fast as I wanted them to be, because I would run out of ammo on my Face Puncher or my Insider, or even my Guardian Angel at times, and I just wouldn't have that gun, so I would reload and I would swap away because I'm used to the speed of the gameplay loop, and I base my playstyle off that. So I put more Alacrity and that fixed that, and made it much, much more fluid and less janky. And, of course, the alternative is Restless or Transcend, which neither of which are going to be doing that much, in my opinion, in my experience. For Burn Both Ends, I mentioned that you can use it. I need to update my doc on that, but technically more damage, not really worth it, because losing Guardian Angel is just, it's a kind of a noticeable bonus for only 15% element damage, and you lose almost all capability to utilize Glamour. See Arachnica's most recent video on Glamour for that. With that said, that is going to be everything for the Fallen Eventide video, I believe. Some pointers for the build is pay attention to the map, use recover when you can because you take a lot of damage. Know where your barrels are. If you get hit by a barrel, I'm not responsible. And if you aren't doing endgame content, just worry about the Guardian Angel. Don't even worry about self-dotting. Just use a Phaserker and use a Guardian Angel. You don't need to use Golden Rule. Golden Rule just makes it much faster and much more fluid, but you don't have to. Other than that, thank you so much for watching my video on my Downfall Amara video, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. Dizzy Kabitty, signing out.